boys who continue to follow running in the upper Midwest.
And we want to discuss important topics, inspiring stories, and extraordinary performances in running.
Welcome back to the Pivotal Running Podcast. Thank you for joining us for another episode. I'm your host, Marty Wemblum, coming to you from the beautiful Black Hills of Rapid City, South Dakota. Let me welcome my co-host, Greg Derbyshire, joining us from the place desired by many, Auckland, New Zealand. And Chris Gruenhagen joining us from the running capital of the prairie, Brookings, South Dakota. Great to see you, mates.
There's brilliant intros there, Marty. That's fantastic.
Got to rehearse. Got to make this thing a little bit more professional each episode. And today, for this episode, we are privileged and honored to have with us today a Drake Bulldog and SDSU Jackrabbit, Josh Yeager. Growing up in Center Point, Iowa, Josh ran 4 cross-country and 3 track seasons at Drake University. After completing his undergraduate degree, he came to South Dakota State University to complete his master's degree in sociology. And his last season of track eligibility was with the Jackrabbits. In his final season of indoor and outdoor track seasons, he became the first person to break 8 minutes for the 3,000 meters on South Dakota soil. He won the prestigious Drake Relay Steeplechase title, and also he set the SDSU 5K outdoor school record of 13 minutes and 42 seconds. Joshua's next race is 30-day steeplechase at the NCAA Division I Championships West Preliminary down in Texas at Texas A&M University this coming Friday night. Josh, thanks so much for joining us today. How's it going?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I think I had mentioned in my messages to you as well. I've watched some of the podcasts. I see I've had some of the older Drake alum, or not Drake, Jackrabbit alums. Sorry, I've gone to too many schools. Jackrabbit alums, and cool to hear what they say as well. So, yeah, glad to be here, and hopefully it ends up being worth your while having me. So.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that you're an alum of both Drake, right, and the more prestigious, running capital of the prairie, South Dakota State University. And so now becoming the school record holder in the 5K and very close school record holder to that Craig Casson 8:43 mark in the steeplechase. You really are knocking on the door there with your 8:48, I believe.
Yeah, it's I wasn't anywhere near a school record at Drake by a long shot. I think I was maybe got to like 5th or 6th on the 3K list my final year, but yeah, I know I ran there at the time of the Reed Fisher era, so of course he had run the 13:48 and I think 28:46, I want to say, something like that. So I was nowhere near that at that time. So looking at those times, I was like, maybe someday I'll get there. But yeah, it is kind of crazy in this weird set of circumstances that it has even allowed me to compete this year to finally get a school record at a D1 university. I was 0.06 off of Joel's 13:53 record the beginning of the season at Raleigh, and Rod gave me a bunch of crap for not leaning at the line there, so kind of had to come back and drop that a few more seconds just so he wouldn't mess with me anymore. But yeah, and then that steeple's getting pretty close now. I think, I'm still fairly green in that event. I have a long way to go, I think, so hopefully I travel that long way in this next few days so I can maybe give that 8:43 a threat on Friday. I know. Grooney saw my workout this morning and it wasn't amazing, but hopefully we'll rebound from that and do something crazy Friday. Yeah.
We had a good opportunity to prepare for the humidity that may arrive as you head south.
Oh yeah. It was scorching out today. Yeah. Your kids might beat me at 200. But.
Oh, geez. They always say it's good to have a bad workout before a big race, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's always a sign, isn't it, that you're gonna run well.
Yeah. Hopefully,
well, sometimes. So are you going to be doing the steeplechase only, or are you going to do the 5 as well next week?
Yeah, so I'll just be doing the steeple. I would have liked to do both, but after they reinstated the regional fields back to 48, they changed the schedule around even more. So the 5K is only 2 hours, I think, after the steeple. And like, if you're at a conference meet, like, of course, go do it, get points for the team. But down in the heat and humidity in Austin, like, of course, I think everyone lining up has the goal, the aspiration to make it through that next round. So it's like, I'm going to put all my eggs in the steeplechase basket. And if I do it and I don't make it, and I was to run a 5K after that, the 5K would be a total embarrassment. So it's like, yeah, I'll save myself that embarrassment and just go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. The amount of lactic you have in your legs would be incredible. So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
well, yeah, you're right. It'd be a rough, double, that's for sure. Do you have what's your background like in the steeple? So you said that you've you're pretty green at it, but did you do that at Drake much?
Yeah, so my junior year at Drake, I started running the steeple. And my first steeple it was just me and a guy from northern Iowa. It was just 2 people in the race. We went to Missouri and he wanted to break 9:20. And I'm like, okay, perfect. Like at that point, running wasn't going amazing. So I think steeple was kind of like that last ditch effort to maybe get some points at conference for me. And I absolutely blew up and ran like 9:47 or something. I don't know, something in the 9:40s. And that guy beat me by like 20 seconds. So it was pretty embarrassing being beat by the only other guy in the field by a good 100 meters. But yeah, so that was my introduction to steeple. I'm also not historically known as a very coordinated person. So as I've gotten older, I guess my legs and arms have somewhat stopped flapping around everywhere. But yeah, later that year at conference, though, I did have somewhat of a pseudo breakout race. Ran like 9:12, so it was like 30-second PR. I was in like second place going into the final lap. The guy who won, his name was Heron Thunderdale. He went to Bradley, and now he runs for like Second City Track Club in Chicago or something. He was an 850 guy at the time, so I'm like sitting behind this 850 guy, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I stumbled over a couple barriers and then faded to 5th. So kind of caught up to me at the end. But yeah, that's and then my senior year at Drake had a tibial stress reaction. That was my third like stress reaction / fracture injury in my Drake career. And I only got 2 races done that season, the second one being a steeple, and I ran 10:11 at Arkansas. And I was falling and it was horrible. I had to have one of my teammates actually carry me on his back the next day.
Oh no!
It was like bringing tears to my eyes every time I walked. So yeah, that was the extent of my steeple career until this year. And then I started doing some work with Eric Hannenberger, our sprints and hurdles coach here. He got I'm right dominant leg, so he got that a million times better and actually got my left leg to the point where I can actually somewhat make it over a steeple. So that's an improvement. And then, yeah, I ran 9:02 earlier in the season, just kind of there was some guys just messing around with me in the field. There were some of the top guys in the nation, and then started out at like 9:30 pace. So I took over, and that ended pretty poorly. But I ran like 9:02, and that was in Mississippi. And then kind of just said screw it, went for it at Drake. Rod said it was the ugliest 8:48 he's ever seen, but if it's ugly, it's still 8:48, and I'm happy with it. So
I know there's the fastest steeple by a jackrabbit in a long time. I mean, it will be, wouldn't it? Probably 20 odd years. So actually, I think I was the last person to run under 9 minutes for the steeple, and it was 20 years ago. So I don't know if anyone has. I don't think anyone had they, guys, before.
No,
so
no, I think you're right, Greg. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I guess there hasn't really been an event that's been concentrated on by Rod. Hasn't probably put too many guys into that event, has he? Since he's been coaching. So yeah, this is huge because it used to. I mean, the steeple used to be like the event that South Dakota State sort of owned, didn't they? We really prided ourselves on that. So I imagine there's a lot of alumni that were just amazingly stoked to see the time you produce, mate, especially at Drake. So did you get lots of kudos from the alumni that came to watch?
Yeah, so that was an interesting race because there was so I was technically second in the race. There was a guy who wasn't on the start list. He was a pro. His name's Dan Machowski, ran at Indiana. I think he ran like 8:32, I want to say, while he was in college. And he was pacing the 5K the next day. So, of course, he wanted something else out of the weekend too. So he got put into the university steeple and ran 8:29, ran the relays record and everything. And like, I'm, of course, way back, finishing in 8:48. Come across the line second. I'm like, okay, sick. Still got a top collegiate in the field, still big PR, whatever. But yeah, my first coach at Drake, because I underwent a coaching change halfway through, his name's Daniel Hostagger, and he'll still do some volunteer work at the relays, as well as like just other things surrounding road racing, et cetera, in Des Moines. And he actually chased me down after I was out of the stadium with the white Drake relays flag and gave it to me. And I'm like, come on, man, are you just you're just doing this to make me feel better? I don't think this is legit. And he's like, no, man, it's legit. Like, I checked with everyone. I checked with Blake Bolden. Sure enough, I look at my phone. Blake has been texting me. He's like, get your flag, get your flag. So, yeah, that was probably the coolest moment. Like, sure, I didn't get a victory lap, but I mean, that guy is an amazing man and mentor for me. And to have him hand me the relays flag was really something special. Beyond that, you know, I had old teammates in the crowd. So just hearing that, you know, they're still cheering for me, even though I'm at a totally different university, is pretty cool. That means perhaps maybe I did something right to leave a good impact on their experience there. And then, of course, my parents were in the crowd as well. So yeah, it was kind of the collision of multiple worlds there at Drake. It was just even my hometown world, because you know, a lot of those we probably sent some kids from my high school to the Drake relays, and then my undergraduate days and the graduate days kind of all blending together. And luckily it came out and couldn't have been much better than anything I could have asked for. So yeah.
So Josh, you want to talk to us about, you know, growing up in Center Point, Iowa, and how you got into running? How did the journey start for you?
Yeah, so if you go back a few minutes, I think I said something about me being kind of a klutz and really clumsy, especially when I was a kid. So my dad was always the athlete, kind of the big baseball star. He played football. He did track as well. You know, my mom did some volleyball in high school, but my mom's dad was actually like I think he had some school records back in the day as well, back before our school district was separate. But yeah, I mean, it was a small town, not really known for running at all. Like I said, roughly probably 2,000 people when I was growing up. And my dad had the mile record of 4:32 that he had run his senior year of high school. And he never trained, never did anything. So that was pure talent. Like, I wouldn't be surprised had he went on that I'd still be chasing some of his times, or at least the conversion of them, you know, running on cinder tracks or whatever that he was running in back in the day. So yeah, kind of following kind of that, my grandfather on my mom's side and my father's footsteps. I'm just like, yeah, I need something to do. I'm just going to go out for cross country in 7th grade. And yeah, I had tried track beforehand. I did like a 6th grade track and field day or whatever. And I did the long jump, and I thought I won because no one showed up. And I was walking away from the long jump, and the elementary school principal came up and he's like, "Hey, how'd it go?" And I'm like, my dad's like, yeah, I mean, he won. No one else was there. And he's like, oh, well, my son just like jumped half an hour before. And I'm like, oh, crap. So all these kids that had jumped half an hour before beat me in the long jump. So I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't long jump or do any field events. So yeah, I went out for cross purely just for the heck of it, make some friends, whatever. I think my first cross race was like 1.5 miles and it was 14 minutes. It was abysmal, horrible, definitely not living up to my father's 432 mile, but yeah, I just stuck with it. I didn't do high mileage, anything at all. I had our coach was Coach Lou Payne, very, very inspirational guy. Yeah, honestly, another life mentor guy I look up to. He was a football player in high school, so he kind of transitioned into that coaching cross country role and did the best that he could with the young group of clumsy guys that he had. And eventually I just showed up to summer running every day. I ended up breaking my dad's record my sophomore year, ran under 4:30 in the mile, dipped under that barrier, and then yeah, times improved from there. But yeah, largely, I was decent in high school, but I wasn't cream of the crop by any means. So yeah, just kind of mostly just following in my relatives' footsteps and trying to carve out a niche of my own that didn't involve sports with balls or physical contact, because I was not good with that. So yeah.
It's kind of the tradition of a distance runner, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's not too many that are that coordinated at much other stuff.
No. Yeah. I can hardly do a push-up, that's for sure. But
Well, Josh, you talked a little bit about your progression, but were there any advantages that you felt you gained by growing up in Iowa that helped you kind of develop this hard work mentality?
I mean, yeah. I mean, just in general, my family is very hardworking, I like to think. And, they've had to work for everything in their lives. They lived in a small house in town at first, and then slowly they accumulated enough wealth. We moved to the countryside. They built their own house. Pretty much my dad took the whole thing over, built it up by hand. Of course, not him by himself, but he did a lot of the building himself. So you can kind of use that sort of as a metaphor to working towards something. It was definitely beneficial for me being in a small town because, the analogy, I was somewhat of a big fish in a small pond when it came to running. So I didn't really have all of these, except for at the state level, like all of these other fantastic, amazing runners, just kind of I had things to strive for, but I also wasn't just being forgotten about, as luckily our team, our school, everything was small enough where whether it be academics, music, athletics, whatever it may be, you're given attention and they truly wanted you to thrive and do the best that you could in whatever it was. So definitely I find that as an advantage. So yeah, just a combination of that, that small town Iowa work ethic, I guess you could say, if I'm being corny, as well as just the lessons instilled by my parents and my family from a young age really kind of pushed me to work towards this and progress. So.
Fantastic stuff, Josh. Geez, that's a good work ethic base there for you. And what were your PRs when you graduated high school? What did you come out with in the end?
Yeah, so in cross, I ran a 15:35 5K on grass. So that was probably by far my most impressive thing. That was also at the beginning of my senior year, and I was very much worked out after that race. So that was my fastest time by a long shot. But on the track, go ahead.
No, sorry, you can keep going.
No, yeah, I was just going to say on the track, my PR in the open 8 was 1:58, 3,200 was 9:30, and the mile was 4:20. So, I mean, solid marks, but I mean, nothing like what you see nowadays. Like a lot of those kids just popping off 908s, 9 lows, and so respectable times, but like, yeah, definitely. I was definitely a guy lower mileage that had a lot of room for improvement coming out of high school.
Nice. Cool. And what schools were you looking at? Were you focused only on Drake when you were leaving, or were there other options that you were looking at the time?
Yeah, I was looking at. Of course, I had reached out to all the D1 schools in Iowa, so Iowa State, University of Iowa, and Northern Iowa. Iowa State and University of Iowa, it was more just me reaching out. I wasn't so much recruited. Northern Iowa, I was recruited a little bit, but it wasn't a ton. So there was Iowa, they call it Iowa Private College Week. And I think you can just drive around Iowa, go to all the private colleges for free, get stamps wherever you go and get a free prize or something. So we were just like, yeah, let's go visit a few colleges. So I went to Drake, which is the 4th D1 school in Iowa, but it was private as well. And then I had also visited Central in Pella, Iowa. And at the time, they were coming off a 6th place finish for men's cross country at D3 cross country nationals. And they had a couple good guys, Eli Horton and Cole Decker, who had run 14 lows, as well as like, I think 4 O's in the mile. So they were another program. I was like, okay, well, you know, I was mostly looking at small colleges because I came from a town that small. So those were 2 very appealing options to me. Eventually I settled on Drake because I wanted to run against the best of the best in D1. And so yeah, that's where I ended up for the next 4 years. But yeah.
Nice, mate. Cool.
Yeah.
So Josh, talk a little bit about, you know, your time at Drake. You talked a little bit earlier about, you know, some of the injuries. You got banged up a bit and you had a teammate, you know, carry you off the track or the next day. I mean, that's really tough to go through, but you went through 4 cross seasons there, 3 track, both indoor and outdoor. Do you want to talk a little bit about what it was like to be at Drake?
Yeah, Drake, I love Drake to death. Best track in the world, best outdoor track in the world. The S-Jack is the best indoor track in the world. But yeah, no, it was, you know, it was a really great experience. I liked the smaller feel of the college. Largely, I had mentioned Dan Hostagger. Him and Jacob Kamer, who was the assistant coach at the time, were really just pivotal, just people in my life, just constantly there, even to this day. Just whether it be running, something I'm going through in life, academics, whatever it may be. You know, they were always people I could talk to, and always people that had the best interest for me beyond running. Running, of course, while important, it's secondary to living your life, as I've come to find out over the years. And those 2 guys really showed that to me and instilled a love and passion for running inside of me. So yeah, those 2 for the first 2 years really just carried me through. I had mentioned a few injuries. So I was injured going into my freshman year cross, and that wasn't great. Got a tibial stress reaction right after that. So I sat out indoor my freshman year, bounced back, dipped under 4 minutes in the 15 though for outdoors as a freshman. So not amazing, but shows a lot of growth, especially for just having a stress reaction. Bumped my mileage up probably to 50 miles a week that summer. All of a sudden there's a metatarsal stress fracture, so I'm back on the bike in the pool. And thank goodness for Haas for being diligent with me. Yeah, I probably under him ran 40 miles a week and did a crap ton of biking and swimming, and I ended up thriving off of that training system that we had in place. So after I bounced back from cross, I ended up running, I think, 8:28 indoors in the 3K that season, off of like 30 miles a week. Ended up running 3:51 outdoors and ended up scoring at my first conference meet. So yeah, once again, showing that steady progression just by a year, and especially with those 2 stress fractures, showing once again more room for improvement. And then halfway through, our athletic department got a new AD, and then along with that, later on, our coaching staff was changed because Natasha Kaiser Brown, our head coach there, ended up going to Mizzou to be an assistant coach. So she took over that mantle. We had an interim year, and then Mark Carroll and Jay Colosius came in. And they came in with a little bit of a different approach to training than I was used to. Like I had said, I was used to that 40 miles a week, bunch of biking. I got bumped up to around 70 or so miles a week, and my body just wasn't super happy with it. So that was definitely, that transition right when new coaches come in is never easy, especially just with the training, et cetera. So it took me a while to figure that out, but as time went along, they ended up being great. Just really influential guys as well. Taught me a lot, told me a lot of stories, especially Mark Carroll, being, I think he ran 13:02, one of the fastest.
Yeah, he was a superstar, wasn't he, around sort of 20 years ago?
Yeah, ran 7:30 flat in the 3K. So yeah, he was, I learned a lot from him, and I, got a lot of experiences, did a lot of good hard workouts, and yeah, learned from him and Jay. That junior year, I ended up getting hurt once again. And then we kind of flash forward to that initial steeple I had talked about, the 940X, whatever it was. Yeah, I was just not in a good headspace personally at the time. And then along with that, running was suffering a ton as well. But yeah, something clicked at the end of that conference meet. So I was done with school, and I'm just like, you know what, screw it. At this point, if I run horrible, I've been running horrible all year. I don't care if I lose my scholarship at this point. So I went in, I ran 9:12 for 5th. And then the next day I came back. It's 80-degree humid weather, kind of like it's going to be in Austin in a few days. And I won the 5K. So got a conference championship out of that, just out of nowhere. I crossed the line, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? I just beat this guy that just ran 3:43 in the 15 3 weeks ago. What's going on? This isn't right. But yeah, that's, I also was I wasn't naive enough to think that I was the most talented runner out there on that day, or the most talented runner in general. I got lucky because it was super hot out, but I knew that there was so many good athletes coming back the next year. So I was in the right place at the right time, drank enough water that day. But then, yeah, going on, I got my first all conference plaque. I got 10th at cross country my senior year. Came out swinging and indoors my senior year, ran 8:11 in the 3K. And I broke 4:10 in the mile as well. Was going for indoor conference, got lapped out of the indoor 5K, didn't even start the indoor 3K because I came down with an illness. I was shaking and shivering in my bed all night. Fast forward a month, and then I get a tibial stress fracture. So that was the conclusion of my Drake career. Kind of sucked to sit on the sidelines and watch the Drake relays and watch all my friends go and run their final conference meet. But yeah, it was kind of at that point, I thought I was totally done with running, or at least collegiately. I was going to try to do my own thing post-collegiately, but it probably just looked like road races here or there. But yeah, eventually, going back to Dan Hostager once again, he saw Rod DeHaven at the Iowa State track meet while he was recruiting some high schoolers. Got him to come down and talk to me outside the entrance because I wasn't about to pay to get into the meet, just to talk to some dudes. So he came out to talk to me and talked to him, and I probably didn't know until July that I was for sure coming, and then the rest is history. So yeah.
Josh, you were just talking about your time at Drake and leading into that transition or conversation you had with Coach DeHaven. Can you talk a little bit about that transition from Drake to South Dakota State, and then simply your experiences or your time so far over the last year and a half as a Jackrabbit.
Yeah, so yeah, the transition was in terms of running, the transition was fairly smooth. I had quite a few conversations with Rod just about what I had done in the past under the Dan Hostagger system, and then what I had done under the Mark Carroll system, and what had worked for me, what didn't, when I got injured, when I didn't. And Rod is he's very good at creating individual, like speaking to an individual's strengths in terms of workouts, mileage, cross training, whatever it may be. Like you can look at our team now. There's Daniel Burkhalter, ran under 350 this year in the 15. That's a guy who maybe runs 40 miles a week. Every single other day is biking his ass off and just going for it. So, you have people like there's the cohesion of the team, like you're all together as well, but there's also that individualization that I found lacking before I had come here, that Rod really gave to each of his athletes, and I really started flourishing under that. So the transition in terms of running to South Dakota State was pretty straightforward, and it was really nice. I had a lot of say in my training as well, because not trying to say that I know a lot, but I knew my body a lot because, I had gone through 3 stress fractures and countless other minor injuries that I was just like, okay, like I somewhat know like what I need. So Rob was really open to that. So that was good. In terms of moving to the town was totally different than Des Moines. Like Des Moines and the metro area has like 250,000 people. So I mean, going from small town Center Point to Des Moines was a huge shock, but I got really used to and accustomed to that. And then coming back to Brookings, I was like, where am I? Like,
this is more like Center Point.
Where's the buildings now? Yeah.
How have you found the campus itself, though, Josh? Was like to say the facilities for the athletic side of things?
Yeah, I mean that's another thing. Like coming in, that made the transition easier too. Drake, we had that great outdoor track, of course, but our indoor facility for training was a square 220-meter track above the basketball stadium, which I attribute to at least one of my stress fractures during the winter. But yeah, that thing was brutal, especially trying to run like 135 or whatever 600s on it. You feel like you're about to fly into the bleachers on either side. So yeah, the S-Jack, obviously like state of the art, amazing. I like how we can go into lane 6 or lane 8 and do some Ks or tempos and have a little bit less of an aggressive turn on there. But yeah, definitely the facilities when I came in were amazing and very conducive. Especially for me, like, coming back from injury, there was a lot more like cross training options, bikes, etc. Other than that, it was a little bit different being a graduate student. So my coursework was not as time consuming as in the sense that I'm sitting in class all the time. I usually only had class 2 or 3 times a week for 3 hours in the evening, something like that. But of course, I'd spend more hours than I did in undergrad writing papers, etc. So it was different because now I had to start working and going to school and running. But it also allowed me to kind of live that lifestyle of, recovery, rolling out every night a little bit better, cooking lunch for myself instead of going to the Hubble buffet at Drake University and just eating myself silly with crappy off-brand pizza. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, and then just beyond that, the people on the team were very open and very inviting. Coming in as a graduate transfer, especially coming in, I had the fastest mile and 3K times on the team. That can definitely get a little weird, especially if you're in the program and you're already established and you're like, oh, is this guy going to come in and just be cocky? Like, is he going to be a jerk or whatever? So I tried to definitely not be that. So I came in and was just like, hey guys, I'm a normal dude. I'm kind of weird. You're kind of weird. Let's be friends, whatever. So we all kind of got along. I got along with pretty much everyone, and I hit it off right at the bat. We have a 6-year gang with Chase Ko and Lucas Nelson, and 3 of us are great friends. Even though I've only been here 2 years, like I feel like I have a deep connection and deep bond with them, and I feel like we've gone through a lot of similar struggles and life turning points and moments in this past year and a half together. So yeah, overall that transition here, very smooth, and honestly, I've made some of the best friends I've ever had here. And I've met some great, I mean, Rod is of course an amazing coach, but the alums, and then seeing you guys being this interested in the track and field program too, to put together this podcast and invite people like me on, that's pretty crazy. That's cool. Not just for me to sit here and be on it, but for people watching and following who've maybe been in the program, or people who want to come into the program in the future. This information's out here. This is a good place to come. And I think my past 2 years here have reflected that. And especially this last season, I opened up my first race here at South Dakota State. It was 8:38 in the 3K. I went out at 8:20 pace and blew up, and it was one of the most embarrassing races I think I've run. But I went from 8:38 to 8:15 2 months later. That's a testament to Rod as a coach and the teammates around me. I ran 4:10 in the mile that year. So, and then I got 2 third place finishes. Lucas Nelson got the runner-ups at Summit League indoors that last year in 2020. So it had shown that I had come a ways. And not only was I getting stronger, but I like to think having this guy who comes in who's decently quick, hopefully that kind of put a little bit of pressure on some other people, hey, go with this guy, don't let him just show up here. You guys have been here longer than me, don't let me do anything too crazy, stick on me, sort of the thing. Let's work together. And I like to think that did happen, especially going into this next year. I was definitely a lot more connected, a lot more vocal, and a lot more I just hung out with the team a lot more, seeing it was my second year, got a lot more connections that way. And yeah, this past year has been crazy in a lot of ways. But if we just focus in terms of running, it's ridiculous how far we've come. Sure, you see me, yes, I broke 8, I ran 13:42, whatever, but we also had a guy run 14:08, a guy run 14:10, a guy run 14:13. We had another transfer come in who broke 31 in the 10K. 2 other guys broke 31. We had Chase Ko and Ben Olson break 30 in the 10. So it's just you can say it's shoes, you can say it's whatever, but it's just we've got a solid squad. And I like to think that, each of us has played our own role in it. And I do not think I would have ever tapped into this potential had I not been here under Rod and around these guys. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Greeny.
Yeah, that totally answers my questions, Josh, of, sort of really what's sort of gotten this sort of transformation, certainly in the transition from Drake to South Dakota State University. And you not only, get everything out of what you put into other people, but it just makes everybody, so much better as a collective squad. So my hat's off to you on what you bring to the team, and obviously what the team's feeding off of you. So, so what advice would you give to, maybe a high school runner, maybe from a small town, a Midwest small town, or anywhere in the country that, like you said, you came from a small town, 2,500 people, how do you get better? And what advice would you give for them?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's the usual cliche answers, run more, work harder, that sort of thing. But I think, you have a coach to worry about that for you. Hopefully, if you have a competent, knowledgeable coach that will take care of the training for you. You just have to do the easy part of putting in the work at that age. Especially in the off season, I think that's where I found my biggest improvements was, and I wasn't even doing anything crazy, even if it's just getting out the door, running a few miles a day. Like every little bit helps, especially when you're that young. Another thing is like, don't get discouraged, especially when you're in high school. Like I read off my PRs, and very few people would expect a guy like me to have run what I have off of what I did in high school. I'm right up with guys who had run 850 in the 3200 in high school now. So it's like, don't be discouraged. What I figured out is long-term aerobic development really takes long-term, like it takes years to tap into that potential. And I feel like I still have more to tap into that potential. So, I'm still not getting discouraged yet. And if you're a young high school, middle school kid, neither should you. Eventually you're going to develop, your body will develop. And then, of course, that work will start to compound and you'll get better. In terms of running in the future, there's more options than just D1. I went D1, but I was also looking at a Division III school that was one of the top in the nation. But I mean, there's guys in D2 that are literally leading the nation in events. And there's like, I went to the Grand Valley extra meet. That's where I ran 1342. And like, there was like a slew of D3 guys or D2 guys that almost outkicked me. And it's, so you got like D2, D3, you got NAIA, like find a place that fits and works for you. Especially like as a guy who's gone through a coaching change every 2 years for the last 8 years. Yeah, going back to even high school. Like I've seen a lot of different coaches, just be upfront and honest, like tell them what you have done, figure out their plan like for you. Ideally, it's not throwing you into 90 miles and running you into the ground your first year. Just, have open, honest discussion and dialogue with coaches and people around you and find the best option for you. Because once I graduated from Drake, I could have gone to a slew of Power 5 conference schools. Like almost any school would have taken an 811 grad transfer just to see if they could make something out of him. Like at that point, like if he gets another stress fracture, it's whatever, like he'll just get out of the system and he'll be gone in a year. So instead I chose to go to another mid-major in South Dakota State, and I couldn't have been happier. Like I would not have been as good of a runner as I am, but more importantly, I would not have been as good as a person and met as good of people as I did. So be a little bit selfish as you go forward in your running. Find what works for you, but also don't be too selfish, if that makes sense. So
I mean, this looking at your results from January onwards, Josh, they've just been exceptional. Just the consistency's been amazing. What was the lead up to the over the fall? What sort of training did you do that you think has led to this consistency?
Yeah, so it was after COVID hit and the season got canceled back in the spring of 2020. I went out and I was just like, it was one day, probably 8 p.m. after work. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna time trial a 5K just solo here on the Brookings track, and then I'm gonna hard reset, get ready for the summer. And I went out at 14:30 pace and like blew up to a 14:40 something, and I was like, oh well, off to the next training block in the summer. So over the summer, Rod took a really, really cautious approach in building everyone up. Of course, I supplement and cross training in because I go crazy if I don't do some sort of activity every day. I just can't sit around still. It just bothers me. So I supplemented a lot of cross training, just slowly built up, probably upper 70s by the end of the summer. Didn't do a single workout, did a couple strides leading up to the beef and eggs 5K here. Kyle Burdick unfortunately opened a gap on me. I just wasn't quite able to close. I was coming on him in the last 200 meters, but he just held it out. So that kind of showed me that, like, okay, well, I'm still running sub 15 with a 4:30x last mile in the summer off of no workouts. So fitness is there, you know, it's all good. But yeah, then just going on, it was the highest mileage I've ever consistently hit in my life. I probably averaged upper 70s, hit a few 85s, maybe an 86 in there. Time trial, the 14:17 5K at the Brookings track. Greeny was there to watch that. So I think that's the track record there. We had 3 guys go 14:17.
So it would be, yeah.
I'll concur to that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a ton of fun. And then, you know, we just had other couple fun time trials. I ran like a 3:53 1500 and a 1:55 maybe 800, and those are back-to-back days. So the big focus was just, you know, mileage base, getting fit. And then winter came around, same sort of thing. I didn't work out until I got back from break, so I didn't work out till January. And I was just hitting high mileage on the gravel roads in Center Point. And then, yeah, we ran that first meet. All of us were doing the 3K. And Alex Bartholomew was going to be in the field, the NDSU guy who won the 3K the previous year at the Summit League indoors. And he was, of course, wanted to get into the Fast Heat at conference. So he was probably, I figured, just going to sit on me and try to kick, because he was a 4:05 miler at the time. So he had a nasty kick. So I'm like, So we just took out the pace. We went through in, I want to say 8:08, 8:09 maybe, or 4:08, 4:09 maybe through 1500. No, let's say 4:07, because I didn't close in 4 flat quite. 4:06, 4:07. And then I ended up just dropping the pace down and ran 8:07. And I had no idea where that came from. I was like, is this just like, I barely done any workouts or just doing cross country. So I think it was honestly just like the culmination of being injury free for so long, and then along with that, having just, you know, a consistent string of high mileage, quality mileage. And then beyond that, you know, at the time I was running an attached during indoors, so there was literally no pressure. So it was just like, okay, I'm just going to go out and run for the hell of it. Like, I'm going to, you know, don't tell Ron I'm talking about this, but I'm going to have a beer or two after. I'm going to have a beer or two after, and then I'm just going to go into the next race. Like, this is just for the hell of it right now. So that went, you know, amazingly. Like, I thought I'd run like 8:15. I figured I was on roughly the shape I was a year prior. But I beat my goal and ran that fast when I wanted to do that later. Took a couple weeks off, and my workouts were just going perfectly. Like, Rod would put the paces on the board, and I would just go and run a second or two faster than all of them, because I was just like, I want to break 8. And yeah, so then that magical race, you know, I owe it to Tom Brookman and Lucas Nelson for doing the pace job for those. It took me through halfway in exactly 4 flat, and I was just able to crank it down from there somehow. Yeah, coming up on 3 laps to go, I think my pace slowed, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this. And then I was just like, coming up on 2 laps to go, and I'm like, screw it, I don't care. I'll just have a beer tonight, and I'll feel better after that. And then, yeah, somehow magically ran that last 345 point and dipped under 8. And I couldn't run much more than like 3 minutes at a time after cooling down, because I felt like I was just going to like not throw up, but just like my stomach was just donezo. And I was like, oh no, I don't know if I can cool down. So yeah, that kind of showed me, had I had eligibility, 756 made it this year to nationals. Of course, it was a weird year. But if I can run 758 by myself, I can run 755 with other guys around me or faster. So it's just like, all of a sudden, it was just this realization that, holy crap, like, how am I one of the top guys in the nation when I was honestly trash, like absolute horrible a year ago. So it was just crazy. And then the next week, of course, still off cross country training, ran 4:03 in the mile, behind Adam Fogg, who broke 4. And then
there must have been a really cool race to be in. I mean, were you aiming to try and break 4 minutes in that race? Was that something you were thinking about, or?
Rod and I kind of had the that vision of 4:02 in our heads, just because if you look at the Jack Daniels VDOT, the equivalent of 3K across the board is like, of the 758 was a 4:02, and I'm like, well, I haven't done any like specialized workouts at all, so I'm like, I think I can do 4:02 right now, but I'm just gonna go for it, and maybe I just randomly get a shot of adrenaline and I can give 4 flat 0.00 a scare. But yeah, still 4:03, nothing to look away from. So I was still pretty happy with that. And yeah, that was a really cool race to be in, seeing a fellow Jake Bulldog go sub 4. So yeah.
Yeah, that must have been a really cool event. And of course, Adam was the first person to run sub 4 in South Dakota. So it's a massive moment there. Yeah, in terms of sort of running history. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like just continuing that momentum into outdoor. That if we're talking about the VDOT tables once again, that 758 converts to the 1353, which is exactly what I ran at that first outdoor meet. It's kind of funny. I put off my thesis until 1 month left to write it. Like I had all of the information and everything, but my advisor and I got our deadline screwed up. So I showed up to a workout, a hill workout with Lucas Nelson one day, and I went up to Rod and I'm like, dude, I just figured out I have a month to write my thesis. I don't know if I'm gonna, I'm freaking out, man. So I didn't even finish that workout. I was stressing too much. A lot of tummy issues that workout. So that month leading up to Raleigh and that first 1353 was far from ideal in terms of academic stresses, etc. So I did get the thesis done, and I did pass the oral exam. Everything is published, so we're good on that end now. But yeah, there's a couple workouts in there where I'd just been staying up the night before and just writing for what felt like hours, where I just got obliterated in some workouts. But yeah, after that Raleigh 5K, I just after that was that 902 steeple at Mississippi. So I won't lie, if anyone saw me there, I was really, really pissed. I went all the way to Mississippi to get a qualifier, and this is all I got. I ran 902. I mean, still a big PR, but I was not a happy camper on that trip. But luckily that turned around pretty quick at Drake. Just carried that momentum to that 848, and then that Grand Valley meet was something special. Perfect conditions and everything. We were on 13:53 pace once again until a mile to go, and then I took over. Some guy flew around me with 800 to go, and our last 800 was covered in 2:02, and we ran 13:40 low. So I really don't know what happened there. But that was just the perfect culmination of everything. That we also had Chase run 14:10 there. We had 3 or 4 guys, I think 3 break 350 in the 15 there also. So just we all showed that steady improvement, whether it be me with that steeplechase in the school record, whether it be Chase ran he'll be the first to tell you something not representative of his fitness in the slightest at Raleigh, something in the 30s. And then he ran, 29:19 at Drake. You had Joe Minor run like 14:40 at Raleigh and then 14:08 at Drake. And then you had all these other guys just like slowly inching their way down. So, I mean, yeah, once again, you see those flashy times from me, but you see that steady culmination and just that steady improvement from all these other guys too. So yeah, it shows that something's working, something's in the water here in Brookings. So yeah.
That's great that you're taking us through that, Josh. There's so many very memorable performances just in the 2021 season, not only by you, but your teammates. And it's just really cool to, even hear you retell about your teammates' performances. So you talked about your thesis a bit. I actually started reading it. I found it in the SDSU library, and we'll link it on this as well for others. But the title of your thesis was "What am I? Navigating running identity during COVID-19." Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'm surprised how'd you find that? Just searched it or?
No, you're a sociology major. It's a requirement, the thesis. It's actually linked already in the SDSU library. Man, I downloaded it and started reading it. It's great. It's once again, we're going to link this to that so other people can actually download it. But it's so insightful with the people that you interviewed and the amount of research or data that you collected, but the discussions that you sort of outlaid for us. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about it?
Yeah. Forewarning, if you do choose to read it, I think it's 113 pages or something. So try not to fall asleep if you do.
I haven't made it. I haven't made it all the way through. So I will preface, I haven't made it all through.
Yeah, it was kind of. I was struggling to find a topic to write my thesis on. Obviously, running is a huge part of me, and when you do research on something that you enjoy that research, etc., much more. So I kind of thought, well, maybe running. I had taken some independent studies as well on the subject of mental health in the realm of sociology. So my big interests were mental health and running. And then my advisor had noted identity theory, which I won't go into, but it's basically, I'll go into a little bit, just briefly. It's the idea that each person is made up of multiple identities, whether it be role, person, or group identities. These base around whether like my role as an athlete, as a worker, your role as a family member, whatever it may be. So each person has all these different identities that make up their whole them, their self. And when COVID hit, I sort of you look around and you start to see that, everyone in some form or some way had their identity, it was vulnerable, whatever their highest held identity may be, whether it's their lowest held identity. Like workers had to go home. They had to do meetings over Zoom like we're doing right now. People lost jobs. Of course, the NCAA shut sports down. That's probably what hit me and a lot of the other athletes on the team the hardest. So, beyond COVID-19 as, of course, a horrible life-threatening disease, there's also the social impact of that, what it does to the individual. So I wanted to see how that impacted collegiate runners or elite collegiate runners in their identity, their view of themselves. Because me and a lot of people I was here with, we went through some dark times. We're like, are we ever going to be able to run again? We probably, we probably had a little too much fun some nights with each other because we're like, we don't know what else to do than just hang out and goof around with each other right now. It's like, and all in kind of kind of a hope to just put this behind us for right now and just focus on the future when that comes. So it's just like, I kind of looked at what a lot of us did, and I was thinking, you know, something inside of like all of us like just got ripped out. So like, how are we dealing with that? So that's how the whole idea came about. So my interview involved 5 male and 5 female collegiate track and field athletes, and really dived into what running meant to them, you know, how they were exposed to running, how, like, why they keep doing it. And it looks different for everyone, whether it's intrinsic and they want to improve, whether it's just the fact that they enjoy the activity itself, or whether it's they do it for their friends, to make their families proud, whatever it may be. And all of these different reasons for running, and then combine that with the people around them, kind of showed how they changed through COVID, and then how they changed, or if they changed back to having that running identity as a central identity, going into the next semester when running became a central thing in their life once again. So there was, I mean, if you look at it, there was a ton of great, interesting facts, great things. I kind of propose a model in there that shows what people do, how they navigate their mental health and identity throughout a crisis like this. Now, we're fortunate enough to where, and everyone I interviewed ended up running at college again. So that identity was reinstated in their lives. A lot of people after this pandemic aren't as fortunate. So in that sense, we are fortunate and we're very thankful, but it was really interesting to see like who started focusing more on farming, who started focusing more on their role as a brother, as a caretaker for their parents, whatever it may be. And it kind of just goes to show that like, I bring up the importance of a holistic person in there. So there's more to life than just running, which is sometimes hard to hear when you're a runner. Because like in the past, especially when I was a senior in high school, I'm like, running is the only thing. That's all I need. I don't need it. I don't need a girlfriend. I don't need anything. Just running. But like, you know, and by no means do I think I'm a wise older person now, but I've started to realize that there are a lot more important things than running. And you know, a lot of people I found in that study realized that. So it was just interesting to see like how people changed in their view of themselves throughout. And yeah, I think it was really interesting. And if anyone else decides to read it, hopefully they think it's interesting as well. But yeah.
It's definitely worth a read, and we'll, like I said before, we'll link it here. Great work, well done on the thesis, Josh. Yeah, like you know, you got a huge, obviously, race coming up on Friday. But do you want to talk to us about going down to Texas A&M, College Station, and to take on really, you know, go and potentially take some scalps?
Yeah, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. You know, I feel like I have quite a lot of expectations now, especially after some of the times that I've run. And that 8:48 at Drake was largely alone, just because you have that Dan Michalski so far out in front of me, and then I kind of had a few seconds on the chase pack there for a while. And the weather wasn't phenomenal there either. It was pretty cold and windy. So I definitely think I can go faster than 8:48. Like we had mentioned earlier, going for that 8:43 school record ideally. So yeah, definitely feeling a little bit of pressure. I've had a few people come up and go like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna make it to the next round," and I'm like, "Oh, I hope so." It's not gonna be easy though. But yeah, I think I mean, it's gonna be hot and humid, but like Grooney had mentioned, I got a taste of that today, and definitely got a taste of that at the conference meet the other week. I think it was in the 80s, low 80s, high 70s, and pretty humid. And I did the 15.5 double that second day, and felt pretty good. So I think ideally I'll be decently acclimatized, so that won't be a huge issue. And if it is, everyone else is dealing with it. So yeah, I just gotta treat it like it's potentially my last shot in the NCAA. Last race as a jackrabbit, and just give it all that I have. I mean, there's literally nothing to lose at this point. I could fall over 3 times and crawl to the finish line and still be proud with the season that I put together. But of course, that doesn't mean that I'm complacent. Like, I still want to go out and run 8:43. So we'll see what happens with that. But.
So is it going to be, so moving on to qualifying for the NCAA Nationals, what will you have to achieve to get to that next stage, do you think?
Yeah, I believe it's 3 heats with 48 guys, so 16 per heat, and then it's top 3 per heat, and then top 3 fastest times. I mean, the steeplechase is kind of like, it's not so much like a 15 or 5 where it'll be super tactical. Like, historically, most of the prelim races go pretty hard, and a lot of people run their PRs there. So we're thinking ballpark, I think sub 8:45, 8:43, like low 8:40s to advance to that next round. And I think that's kind of on the back end of advancing. So yeah, I mean, I think the fitness is there. I just hope it's got to be there on the day. And it's such a volatile event, you know, you never know who's going to pop off or fall or do something absolutely nutty in the steeple. So I just hope I'm the guy that pops off that day. But, yeah.
It's it, mate. Yeah, no, it's definitely a great event for never being out of the race. You know, you can make up big gains, can't you, in like that last lap as well.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of your future plans on the horizon, Josh?
Yeah, so obviously first things first is that regional meet next week, and hopefully, crossing my fingers, knocking on wood, maybe that next round. But then beyond that, I'm looking at continuing professionally in some capacity, running. What that looks like yet, I don't know. I am in talks with at least one group right now. I'm going to like a Road Runners Club of America professional running summit sort of thing that some of the you apply for as an outgoing collegiate athlete and you can get invited to. So Joel Reichow has done that in the past, as well as my previous teammate at Drake, Reed Fisher. And there's quite a lot of good information, contacts to running clubs, etc. there. So yeah, right now, yeah, realistically looking at a club running setting, because there's, like, I've run some pretty quick times, but there's obviously a lot of people that have run a lot faster that are, you know, taking those, you know, big time contracts where they get paid and everything. And like, I'm nowhere near that yet. So my best bet to continue to improve is going to be in that sort of club setting where they offer some support, whether it be chiropractic, some help getting into races, as well as coaching services. And most importantly, like a solid group of teammates around me to continue to train with. So I guess if any of those clubs are watching this, give me a ring or something. But yeah, ideally that is the goal. You know, professionally, in terms of beyond professional running, professionally in terms of like an actual career when my legs eventually give out, you know, we'll look forward to that. It gets a little sketchy, especially when you try to pursue professional running with working part-time jobs, and then it's like all of a sudden you're 35, 40, and then you're trying to get a real big boy job, and then all of a sudden you have no experience on your resume. So I'll have to figure out something with that as I move forward. So I guess if I reflect back to that, the conversation on my thesis where we had mentioned that idea of the holistic person, I want running will forever be near and dear to my heart and forever be something that I do in my life, whether it be me running personally, at whatever level that is, or volunteer coaching, or just taking my own kids when I have them under my wing and trying to show them the ways of Rod DeHaven and Dan Hostager and how it helped me get to where I am. But of course, like, I would like to work in a job. Probably I've worked in youth nonprofits in the past, so something in that service sector as well, where I can do something more than just solely focus on myself, because it is pretty selfish to just run myself into the ground every day and then sit on my butt and play video games. So I got to start making a difference at some point. So
I'll take advantage of it now, mate. I mean,
yeah.
Sure, we'd all go back to those days quite willingly.
Isn't that your life now, though, Darby?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say that, but it is a little bit like that.
Hey, Darby, I'm with you. I'm still playing video games too.
I know, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Josh, thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. Future plans on the horizon there. The holistic, right, health and wellness and really fitness that you sort of already talk about is definitely right in front of us, coming out of an international health crisis. And so I think you're onto something. I think you definitely, obviously pursuing that with incorporating your running could definitely be an asset to any organization. So definitely keep pursuing that. So, and I hear some other, clubs are, maybe starting to form as well. So I will put a bug in people's ears on that as well. So appreciate you, using this as a platform to market yourself as well. Yeah.
Are you referencing the Bobcat XC Club? Marty, is that what you're referencing?
Well, I'm wearing the Prairie Striders. They were a formidable team back in the day, in Brookings. They would go to Ames and, like Bob Bartling tells the story, pull out, $5,000 from Ames. They run the tables and on Ames and take all the prize money and go back to Brookings. So
the Midnight Madness, or
Midnight Madness, yeah.
Midnight Madness.
Midnight Madness.
I thought you might have been trying to put the recruiting message out to Josh Jasin to be the first pro in the Pivotal Running track team, the Pivotal Running Track Club.
Well, it's I'm glad you said something, because that's kind of my future aspirations. I really want to get something started here in the Black Hills, Rapid City, with access to 6,800 feet elevation in the western border of South Dakota, and then where Chris and is in Brookings, got a world-class indoor facility. You could do some damage just traveling across the state, I think. So I'll put that out there.
Yeah. Are you going to be, firstly though, I hope you're going to look at taking down Rod's 5K time pretty soon. Because he's 1340, isn't he? For his 5K PB.
Oh, is he 1340?
Yeah.
I'll take that down next year.
You should be looking at all his times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he'll say something about the super shoes, how he was running on the Zoom Ds with 4 nails on the bottom of the spike plate.
Yeah, that is the case. So here we go. What's he pulling out of the box over there? They look like some alpha flyers.
I'm glad you brought that up, Josh. Let's talk about shoes, okay? So pre-Fontaine, he wore the pre.
Where are those from, Marty? That's amazing.
I made these, Greg, but I took the pre Montreal, right? He was running something like this, his final race, But let's take it's not the Dragonfly, it's the Zoom X, and I took this for a couple spins around the track as well, and with the arguments about the super shoe, you still got to put the force into the ground, and an equal and opposite one, comes back, but you still got to do the work. And so my thing is, let's stop all the countries. Greg, you're witnessed it. All these countries are trying to DQ athletes for, wearing these shoes. I mean, it's just, it's always been like this. Pre was in the 70s running in this. I mean, I don't have any 1920s spikes, so we could be here all day. It's just the evolution of the sport. That's my thoughts. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I was interested to actually see that you can still wear the Vaporflies in NCAA events, can't you? It's yeah. Whereas in like if you enter a club event, a lot of places they'll disqualify you if you have them, and yeah, NCAA there's a whole different level. So yeah, I think it's great. Whatever's going to advance the sport. But yeah, I can imagine Rod would be all up about that, eh?
Yeah.
Just tell him to suck it, It's just that's what happens.
He's all modest until he gets beat. That's kind of Rod, right?
I don't know. He wants you to beat the time, but when you do, he'll give you shit for it. So
nice, mate. Yeah. Oh, hey, from me personally, great chatting with you today, mate, and all the best next week, and we'll be cheering for you.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to talk to all you guys as well. Yeah, it's really cool to come here as a grad student, kind of a guy that hasn't spent a whole lot of time here, and still be like you guys bringing me on and knowing that I've hopefully brought some happiness to Slice of Jackrabbit history as well. So yeah, following in your guys' footsteps, though, of course.
Yeah, you've definitely did some huge advancements.
You're well ahead of the footsteps. It's been great having you in town, Josh, and I know you talked about your transition coming in as a grad transfer, and I remember seeing those first few races at the indoors as you talked unattached, and kind of getting the insight or hearing the rumblings of who this grad transfer was. And it was always positive comments of he's been a great addition. We're so happy that he's here, and just the assistance, and it's great of the impact that you have done in such a short time. And yeah, like I said this morning, and just great to see you out there, and I love seeing the guys come out to the track, and the small town atmosphere, being able to look out my window once in a while and see a crew of jacks clipping down the street, and don't maybe get that in a city the size of Des Moines. Or at least it's a little less frequent to see them come through your neighborhood. But as the rest of the guys said, best of luck down south, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to watch you from afar.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Josh, once again, I appreciate everything you've done for this program, but all the alums, on behalf of all the alums, we just much continued success as you continue your season. And I'll give you four things. Okay. One, you should have all the confidence in the world of what you and your teammates have done this year. So you take that into every race with you. Okay. Number two, it's about timing. Okay. And so you can take this as you're navigating, your holistic viewpoint and perspective on life too. The third thing I'm going to give you is relaxation. Just relax, brother. Have a beer after the race. Like you said, it facilitates what you want to do. And if you're bearing down at the end of a race, you gotta relax. And the last thing is breathing. Okay. You got to breathe. So relaxation and breathing are the last two. There's four things to keep with you, and much, Godspeed to you. And we'll get you out to the Black Hills at some point for a good run. Okay.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you guys a ton. It was a lot of fun and great to share a little bit about myself. So yeah.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Pivotal Running Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, pivotalrunning.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you simply would tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Thanks.